God is moving. It's Young People Nation.
Welcome to Young People Nation. Listen to us weekly as we commit to bring transparency, healing, and truth to the everyday situations in life that might bring you down. Join us for your weekly dose of inspiration. Thank you for listening to Young People Nation. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now, here's your host, Eugene and Donna Perry.
Let's go. Christ is the foundation. Know his word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Giving the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross.
Well, we're back with session 2 with Miss Shoshana Wesby, whose motto is, while I'm yet living, I will give my all. This young lady is a counselor, a mental health advocate, and she specializes in mental health and teenage coping skills. And we are back with Miss Vanessa Harris. And by the way, Miss Wesby's name in the community is Passionate, because she is so passionate about what she does. Yes. And we have Miss Vanessa Harris, Most Elevated Deepness. And I tell you, when she opened her mouth and it began to flow, you know that this young lady is just gifted. And we're so grateful for you all, and thank you again for your service to our country, Miss Vanessa. And she is a mother, and she loves, we call him Sir William. That's what when I first saw him, I said, that's Sir William right there. And she states that her greatest mission and reward in life is being a mother. Now, she's going to unpack that later down the line with some things, because being a mother is an assignment. So, how y'all doing, ladies?
Good.
We rolling with it, right?
We rolling.
Okay, so in this session, we're going to talk about taking the restriction and the stigma, the superstition off mental health. Mm-hmm. Now, in our community sometimes, I know my husband and I was guilty of this. You say just pray about it, and that's that. So describe some of the restrictions you have seen in your community with mental health.
Okay. Honestly, I have the same testimony as far as restrictions, seeing them in church. Now, the world is screaming inclusion now, so everything is mental health now. Sometimes I think they over mental health stuff,
Yeah.
Some stuff like, now you just need to get that together.
Right.
But I mean, but I really, and I say nowadays, I see inclusion, and I see that it's being accepted a lot better. Mm-hmm. But when I was younger, definitely it was taboo. Mm-hmm. It was like, therapy, like. And you know what? It's so funny how we were programmed. I would say the same thing. Mm-hmm. You need Jesus.
Right.
That was
right.
You need Jesus.
Yeah.
That was
you do need him now.
Right? Yeah, that was it, right? That was it.
Yeah.
So I look at people like, because you see the cliche, people sitting on a chair on the couch, and somebody just writing, stick figures on the paper, and so that was the view of therapy, what it was, and so I guess the church thought that we were glorifying that image over the name of Jesus, but in actuality, we see now that that's not the case.
Yes,
we see that they work hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
God, definitely wants us to seek wise counsel.
Yes,
and we go to the doctor for diabetes, and you're gonna take your pill, ain't it? You're gonna take that pill.
That's right.
Your sugar. Get your sugar under control. But you can't take a pill to get your mental under control sometimes. You can't take go to somebody and sit and talk about the issues that you are going through. That's I don't see a lot of the restriction that we did in time past, but it's still people out there that definitely shun it, and they make it to be something new age.
I learned from my daughter also is that you got to be ready to unpack that when you go into mental health, because it's going to be a journey. And so you can go to the therapist, But if you don't talk,
baby,
that's a problem. Am I right?
It's so true.
It's a problem.
And so sometimes when a person say, "Well, I went to therapy and it didn't work," I'm learning still that if you don't go in there with the readiness to unpack whatever that is deep within, and you talked about that. I was about ready to call you Dr. Wesby, but if they don't get to the root of that, what does that look like, Miss Wesby?
But it's more than them not talking. It's a bunch of components. Why therapy won't work. Like some counselors and therapists specialize in certain areas. You won't go to a grief therapist to handle relationship problems. And sometimes we specialize in areas. Like I specialize with teenagers.
Yes.
I specialize with young adults. That's my specialty. You know what I'm saying? I do well with teenage boys, but I'd rather have a male talk to a teenage boy. Like if I can't help a child, I refer them. That's what's called referral. You do a referral out to someone who specializes in those areas, and you can find a specialty counselor in the area that you're seeking for, like marriage and family therapy and things like that. And sometimes people just think that therapy is like this wide umbrella, and they was like, I'm gonna go find a therapist, and they just go to any therapist they find, and it doesn't work for them.
Okay.
And it's because they haven't did their homework to understand that maybe you need an older black lady or older white man, or and culture has a lot to do with it as well. Sometimes like with kids that don't talk with me, I can kind of pull it out of them.
Okay.
But every therapist can't do that.
Wow. Yes.
Because they don't specialize in that arena. You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
so that's why when some people like therapy don't work for me, did you find the right therapist though?
That's good.
So it's a lot of components in allowing for therapy to work for you. Yeah. It's a lot of components.
I've seen that people open up for therapy. The most important part is finding what the root of the problem is. Because some kids that I've seen, it is simple as they can't read and write.
Yes.
Wow.
It causes anger issues.
Yes.
That's true.
It causes ADHD. Sometimes feeling like learning disabilities are very prominent with kids that act out.
Well, we have done that as a society as a whole. Part of the problem when they took out writing and cursing in school.
Yeah, they taking it out.
They took it out, and I met a young man that couldn't read his grandmama's writing because she wrote in cursing, and then they turn around and feel stupid when you're doing business. They can't sign their name on the line in cursing. They print it.
Yeah.
Well, everything is moving more to technology. That's why they going away from cursive. But when technology fail, I think practical things should still be in usage.
Yeah.
But they're taking a lot of things like writing away because they're constantly on the computer.
Yes.
I don't think it's a good idea to take away writing, practical writing, but that's where our generation is going to.
And the other part that technology is a problem in their lives because they can do the whole book report and the computer write it themselves. It's programs out there that write your own dissertation and everything. And you just say a couple of words and it'll write it and even sign your name to it.
Hey,
it's light and darkness to that.
Yeah.
With every generation, it's going to be advancements. It's going to be things that as I guess an older generation, because we're becoming that, we see that we feel are necessary, but. We have to know that there's a transition that's taking place, and it's happened since the beginning of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
And you better move with it, or you get left.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And when I was little, internet was something kind of like mystifying, and but now it's just like every 2-year-old it's on the internet, right?
Oh yeah,
So now we see how things evolve. And sometimes we have to,
roll with it.
Embrace,
Yes.
the evolution, yeah.
Because
I see that so often because my grandson would take the iPad and change the channels on TV, and I don't even know how to put the numbers on the phone yet.
All right.
But
I just learned how to do that. So
let me ask you all something now. What, where have you seen the greatest stigma dealing with mental health in the community? Where have you seen it?
I'm gonna be honest with the Black community. It's a lot of stigma with mental health. Like y'all were talking about earlier, how we grew up. It was seen to me as you going to the crazy doctor.
Right. Still is.
You going to the crazy doctor. What you going to? Why you telling them people our business? What goes on in the home? Stay in the house.
Wow.
That right there is prominent in the Black household. You don't go outside the house and tell none of your business. So a lot of kids don't get the help that they need because they don't have a different perspective of how to handle their situation. Some of the kids I have to just advise, baby, wait 2 more months and you out of there.
And you know
and
what?
It's crazy.
And what happens? They end up being angry adults.
And the cycle continues with their kids.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Unless they break it.
Yes, because they display that's inside on their household. If they don't get the help, that's like my husband and I. We started going to a therapist about 4 years ago because of some traumas that had happened in our own household, and we're solid with God. You understand? I'm not perfect with him. God knows, because all this dies daily, every day. but what we recognize is we had to step back and really, like you said, we had to connect with someone who connected with us.
Yes.
And we got a lot of freedom in that to look at things in a different perspective. Therefore, we don't take that and display it even with our daughters being adults. You don't release all that upon them and the people that God allow you to interact with. Because they be like, what's going on with them? You know?
A lot of stuff in homes growing up, I can't say for different cultures, but I know like in our community it was like sweeping under the rug, don't never talk about it. So you got all these kids dealing with traumas, especially when it came to a family member touching one of the young girls in the house. You better not say nothing about it, you know what I'm saying? And nobody's talked about it. And they act like it was normal. That's not normal.
That's exactly right.
But now you got a whole generation of kids like, look, we putting this out on Front Street. They telling it. They put it on social media.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You dare not
That's
do no
right.
mess like that because they gonna put you out there.
That's right.
So the sweeping under the rug, it is slowly dissolving.
Yes.
Out of our communities. But that was something that we grew up with. Don't tell it. Don't tell what go in the house, and don't talk about it. Pray about it. But no, what's the saying on Color Purple? But nobody know but you and God or something like that. Then that guy said on Color Purple. Better not tell nobody but God. That's what it was. So that's how a lot of our Black communities grew up.
Yeah, I suffered from that in my relationship because I walked around for years, thought my father was my father, and then through that DNA, Dana don't lie, and you find out something different. And it was really a intense moment to come back and talk to my brothers and talk to them that my father wasn't my father. And some of them saw something but nobody never spoke because they took it to the grave. Yeah. And it affected me mentally. It really did. I tried to act like it didn't, but it did. And I can just imagine how other kids growing up in the household and have 3 different fathers, and none of your brothers are your brothers, and or the father's right down the street with another family. Wow. And you never know until you grow old, and then you say, "Hey, I need some therapy because I'm all jacked up."
And that was part of us just stepping back. Wait a minute, this is something we got to deal with. You understand? Got to stick close. This thing really affected him, and I applaud you, Eugene, for even saying and acknowledging how that affected you as a man. Because on his face, he's like, "Oh, I'm good," but me as his wife, I knew he wasn't good.
Yeah,
Our
when you're by
like
yourself.
Men are like that the worst. They're just expected to have it together.
Yeah.
And that's so unfair.
And he said something, but when you was by yourself, what now?
When I by myself, that's when the tears will start, and that's when the voices will come.
Wow.
And that's when the unassurity, because the devil will sniff you out like a Roman line. And in those vulnerable areas of a man's life, that's when you're vulnerable and when you're not strong. And you don't want to cry on the shoulder of your wife. You don't want to go to the pastor and say this, because you be next week serving. And so,
not our pastors now.
No,
let's make that disclaimer.
Not ours.
Come on. Okay, not ours. Let's make that disclaimer because they're not like that.
Right, but I have been in churches that it has been like that, and you be on up there the next serving and you looking at each other. Well, Holy Spirit didn't tell them that,
And I feel you on that.
We're getting close. This is how. See, I love this connection. It just rolls, in churches now. And you said something very powerful. More churches are open to mental health. Pastors and people have committed suicide. Let's just talk a little bit about that. Thank goodness for the pastors who recognized, wait a minute, I got a problem.
Wow, yeah.
Our pastor shared with us how they went to counseling. That was big. You understand? And so the church and being open to the mental counseling.
Yeah. I remember not too long ago, it's actually been quite a few years. My mom, she, definitely watches like lots of televangelists and things like that on TV my whole life. I've always, just seen everybody on TV, and she started watching this young man, and he became, somewhat popular, and all of a sudden, a couple of years later, found out he committed suicide.
Yes.
And I was like, what? And I definitely can imagine that was a very eye-opening moment for the church. That might have, even though that young man took his life, it still wasn't in vain, because it definitely opened the eyes of the body of believers. They put so much trust and faith in this man's faith, but yet still this man was struggling with things that he couldn't control, things that he had probably most likely taken to the Father, but he needed some extra some extra help. And so like I say, even though he did, transition and take his own life, I believe that his life was not in vain, because now people do talk about it, and people do know to get help.
Yes.
So yeah.
What's the issue a lot of time, even with we're taught as counselors, every counselor needs a counselor. Every pastor needs someone they can talk to. On a different type of level. We're expected as counselors to have all the answers. And it humbles you to say, I don't know sometimes. And when you think, because people put so much of a big expectancy on you to have the answers, you'll start internalizing it to think that you're supposed to have the answers, but you're not God. You're not going to have all the answers. You need someone that you can talk to that's above your level of thinking, so you can process better. But
so
it's prideful. It's pride to think that you should have the answers just because people praise you to have the answers. Not going to have it. Everybody needs help.
That's right.
You need to go find it.
Another problem with that is everybody's dumping their problem on you. And as being a leader as a pastor, and say 30 members have come to you with their personal problems, all them personal problems come home to nest with you when you go home. So when you go home and your meal ain't cooked and all like that, and you have your problem in your house, and then all the problems come to visit you at night, you can't sleep.
Goodness, right?
But yet you supposed to have it together when you go back and see sister so and so or deacon so and so, and all them problems come to visit you while you riding home.
That's it.
Right.
And it helps. So that means what I'm looking at, that we have to be very
conscious.
Thank you. Conscious, discerning of what's going on around us. I experienced firsthand where someone smiled all the time. You would have never thought she had any problems. But one day she didn't show up for work.
Yes.
And that right there, she killed herself right there in front of her husband. And so from that point right there for me, I was like, whoa, let me pay attention. Because like you said, those that do all that laughing and smiling, that's a whole plethora of stuff going on.
And you know what the crazy part about that was? Remember, I was there stationed with near him, and I was there when she called, and they talked on the phone, and he was getting ready to go back out to the field, and she accused him of fooling around with another woman. I was sitting right there with him. And the mental state of a person escalates.
Wow.
Escalates when you believe something going certain way.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up. Do y'all have any quick closing remarks?
Oh, goodness. I got a lot to say.
We got a break.
Because I'll go over time.
Okay.
I just think it's key what Passionate said as far as leaders need leaders.
Amen.
Everybody
Amen.
needs someone, yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Well, we like to give out this mental health hotline at 988. That's a 988 hotline. We have the text 741 to 741. That's free 24/7. And if you don't know, you can just call 211. That's for general community resources. That's 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. All right, Mr. Perry.
Everybody remember, leaders are just people too. They have their own personal problems. They go through their problems like anybody else, and they are not God. Remember, are you existing, or are you living the life that you meant to be live? Young People Nation, and remember, there is always hope.
Let's go. Christ is the foundation. Know His word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Give the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross. He the #1 prospect. He the top boss. I was broke, I was empty. He the one that paid the cost. Really thought that I was cool. There was nothing like the Savior. Now it's time for the truth. The whole world been waiting. It's Young People Nation. 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 The whole world been waiting. Whatever you going through, I know what He gonna do. Don't matter the circumstance, we going back to the root. Keep going. Let that seed keep growing. You need peace and we know it. Now it's time to live holy. Young People Nation. You know what time it is. Young People Nation. Get ready, the time is here. Get ready, we vibing here. We about to let God in here. Young People Nation. It's Young People Nation. Yeah, do it for the heavens, you know where we going. Influenced by His love, you know we gotta show it. It's time to put the youth onto what God is doing. Cause I can tell you now, right now, that God is moving. It's Young People Nation.